Indigenous Cultural Intellectual Property, ICIP. Now, intellectual property, IP, relates to ideas created by an individual's thought processes, the foundation being their intellect. The creation of new ideas is designated ownership to the creator under laws related to patents, trademarks, and copyright. The reasoning behind the generation of intellectual property laws was to reward creators for making out of an effort to develop new ideas that in turn benefit communities. So that is an introduction to what IP is. But what we're looking at in this video is Indigenous cultural and intellectual property. So IP relating to Indigenous communities. So ICIP was developed to protect the ownership of Indigenous culture, tradition, and properties. Essentially, they predate IP laws. So this was set up at an international level in order to protect that. Recognition and profits in relation to these areas goes to these communities. And areas that may be protected under ICIP include their knowledge, their traditions of what they teach and their stories being incorporated with that, their artwork, what their designs look like, and the Aboriginal cultures within Australia. We know how their dot paintings are quite famous and quite specific to their own culture. Their music and what instruments they use to create that music is linked to them. Their specific ceremonies that they conduct and are a rich part of their tradition are also protected under these laws. And then items, and as mentioned, instruments for making music, but also things such as weapons and utensils, all of those would be protected under Indigenous cultural and intellectual property, all right, under that international law. So essentially, ICIP is based on the recognition that Indigenous peoples have a unique relationship with their cultural heritage and that they should have control how it is both used and shared. Now, this area can be exploitable, and that's why we need those laws. Okay, you go to a country as a tourist, people are often interested in knowing what the indigenous cultures did in that country, and often it's a rich part of that tradition. So when it comes time to like purchasing products that may relate to those indigenous communities, that needs to be protected. That needs to ensure that if there is anything on sale that replicates things that indigenous cultures did, those profits and that recognition goes to the indigenous communities within that country. So that's why we need these laws to be in place. These communities need to be properly compensated for the use of their cultural heritage and their traditional knowledge. That needs to be protected under these ICIP laws. Okay, it is recognized as an international law in conjunction with treaties, such as the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which states that Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their own cultural heritage. So I hope this video has given you an understanding of not only what IP is, but specifically what is ICIP and how the laws were created to protect the traditions, the knowledge, the artwork, the music, the ceremonies, the items of Indigenous communities. Protect them because they are thousands of years old. They predate laws. They are quite an interesting element of each country, which tourism's come from overseas to see and to learn about, but it's to ensure that whatever compensation comes as a result of that, whatever finances comes that, it goes back towards those communities and helps sustain and ensure that those communities continue to be preserved, to be rewarded, and their culture continues to grow within those countries. And essentially, everyone wins because people want to learn about it. It does make money for people, but the money's got to go to the right place. So that's what ICIP is all about.